Hello student, this video content is the second part of the chapter Resource and Development class 10 subject Social Science. Student, in this section we will discuss about issues related to the development of resources and issues related to resource planning as well as resource planning especially in India. Let us start, student. As we have already discussed in the previous section that resources are very important and vital for the human survival, as well as it uh, it is the one factor which actually maintains the quality of life. We can say that without resources, development of the human being is not possible. The quality of the life to maintain it is very difficult. We can say, student, that over the years, considering that resources are available as a free gift of nature, and considering that there is enough or abundance of resources available in our physical environment, what has been done that indiscriminate use of resources has been done, and because of indiscriminate use of resources it has created number of problems like depletion of resources. One of the problem is that depletion of resources for satisfying the greed of few individual has taken place, which has been a very serious concern for whole of the world. Then there is another problem that accumulation of resources has remained in few hands. That is another symbol of inequality, that it has divided society into two sections, the haves and have not. You will find that in society there are few who are controlling the resources, those who are rich, those who are haves, and there is another section of society which are compelled to live in the poverty and considered as have not or poor. There is another problem, student, that indiscriminate exploitation of resources had led to the ecological crisis. What is there? That ecological crisis simply means we have disturbed the nature balance. We have disturbed the nature balance in the sense that you will find that the global warming, ozone layer depletion, environmental pollution, land degradation, all are associated problem. We have studied in junior classes that because of the greedy because of the greed of the human being, these problems are uh, the outcome. These problems, you can say, these are the results of these greed. You have studied, hope you remember that in the chapter economic development you have studied the statement said by Mahatma Gandhi that this world has enough for our need, but it is never going to fulfill our greed. Simply Gandhiji wanted to say that we need to have judicious use of resources. We need to have an equitable distribution of resources, which has become essential for a sustained quality of life and global peace. That's a very important aspect, student, because now we need to think like this. Now world has to think. Over the years, senseless exploitation of the world resources has made the situation like our ecological balance has become completely disturbed. Indiscriminate of uses of resources has created problem of accumulating resources only in few hand, and there is another issue, that is exploitation of resources to make the high production only for the sake of market economy. If we will continue to this, we might have problem in the future. And if we are wanting to think in the perspective of sustainable development, I hope everybody is clear that sustainable development means we should make the development considering that there has to be enough for the future generation. Your book has provided a simple definition of sustainable development, which means sustainable economic development means development should take place without damaging the environment, and development in the present should not compromise with the need of the future generation. Very true. We should make the development leaving enough for the future generation. We have the responsibility, the present generation has the responsibility to make sure that whatever they are going to utilize as a resource, taking it from the physical environment. They should ensure that enough are going to remain available for the future generation. In this direction, student, first time Earth Summit took place in June 1992 in one of the city of Brazil, that's called Rio de Janeiro. In this city, what happened, that more than 100 countries have got uh, uh, have more than 100 countries have decided to address some of the concerned problems, some of the urgent problem of that time, like environmental protection and socio-economic development, and and that too at the global level. The assembled leader, those leaders who got assembled have signed the declaration that is on topic like global climatic change and biological diversity. There was decided to have 21 agenda to achieve the goal of sustainable economic development. In this direction, what was there, United Nations department, that is United Nations conference on environment and development, which took place same year at the same place. It aims at achieving global sustainable development. It aims at achieving global sustainable development and an agenda to combat environmental damage, poverty related issue, disease through global cooperation on common interests, mutual needs, and shared responsibility. All were addressed. One major objective, the most important objective of this 21 agenda 21, was that every local government now should draw their own local agenda 21. That is how it was addressed, that being local, that is why it was addressed that being localized, people of a particular region, particular territory must be knowing what problem are associated in a particular area where they are living. Student, after having understood the problem associated with overexploitation of resources that has been done because of the greed of the human being, and because of this, the global ecological problem has emerged, like global warming, ozone layer depletion, land degradation, etc. Now we must think in the manner that we should plan our resources. That is how our next heading is resources planning. These resources planning are required as a widely accepted strategy for the judicious use of resources. Yes, student, now time has come that we should give proper thought, we should make proper strategy, that to what extent certain available resources should be utilized. If we are using resources, we should give enough in thought that whether the nature of the available resource is of the renewable character or non-renewable character, what potential resources do we have, what reserve resources do we have, what we will keep for the future generation, so that their life, the quality of the coming generation, the life of the coming generation will not be getting affected. This resource planning become more important in country like India. Reason, we are such a big country with enormous diversity. So in terms of resources, India has enormous diversity in the availability of resources. As some region of our country which are very rich in certain types of resources, but at the same time they are deficient in some other types of resources. Or you can say there is another case, some regions which are self-sufficient in terms of the availability of resources, but some have acute shortage of vital resources. Your book has given certain examples, like it has mentioned that the state of Jharkhand, the state of Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh are rich in minerals and coal deposit, but other example has given of the Arunachal Pradesh, which has abundance of water resources, but it lacks infrastructural development. No such infrastructural development has taken place. The state of Rajasthan has a different case. We have already discussed in the early part, in the previous part, that it is known for possibility for the solar and wind energy, but lacks in water resources. On the other side, we have Ladakh, the cold desert, which is relatively isolated from the rest of the country. It has very rich cultural heritage, but it is deficient in water infrastructure and some vital minerals. Vital minerals, it means there is a deficiency of one thing and sufficiency of another thing. All this has made a call for balanced resource planning in the national level, balanced resource planning at the national level, at the state level, at the regional level and local level. Probably this was decided in the Agenda 21 that every local area will have their local Agenda 21 considering the need and the available natural environment in that particular region. Student, our next heading is resources planning in India. So after having made our point clear about the importance of planning in India and about the importance of resource planning in India, we must understand that resource planning is a very complex process and it involves various factors like identification and inventory of resources. What it means, student, that we need to identify the resources, we need to invent those resources across the region of the country, and for this we will require various tools like surveying, mapping and qualitative and quantitative estimation and measurement of the available resource. This is not an easy task for a country like India, which is very big in size and has the diversity of different kind of resources available in excess of quantity in one region and shortage in the other region. Then comes, student, our next category, that is evolving a planning structure. We will have to do this endowed with appropriate technology which will require to be which will require the support of appropriate technology, skill and institutional setup for implementing resources developmental plans. That is another important thing. It means that we need to have a proper planning structure. We need to evolve that with appropriate technology, number one. Number two, skill and institutional setup, so that implementing resource development plans can take place. Third is matching the resource development plans with overall national development plans. Matching the resource development plans means we need to do the matching of the resource development plans with overall national development plans. We have to ensure that what are the developmental requirement of the country, and we will have to match the developmental plans of the local area. If we consider these things, we can say that a suitable resource planning, we are making a sincere effort and right effort in the direction. As far as India is concerned, efforts for resource planning started immediately after India got independence, that officially started through the first 5-year plan after the independence. Availability of resources in the absence of corresponding changes. There is another issue, student, that you will take availability of resources is a necessary condition for the development of any region. If you have an intention of development of any particular region, first thing required is availability of resources. But only availability of resources is not sufficient. Availability of resources in the absence of appropriate technology, corresponding change in technology and institution may hinder the development. You can take the example from our past that during the colonial period, what was the factor that made such places as a matter of attraction, as a place of attraction for the foreign invaders? Why the colonial master from the European countries came? Reason: it was primarily the higher level of technological development of the colonizing countries that helped them to exploit the resources of other regions and establish their supremacy over the colonies. You have studied the history of British India. You have studied that how our raw material were taken forcefully, how we were forced to produce the things as per the liking of the Britishers. And what happened then? Only resource can contribute. Therefore, we can say that resources can contribute to the development only when they are accompanied by appropriate technological development and institutional changes. India has experienced all this in different phases of colonization. We have studied the history that how our textile product were taken to their interest, how we were made to produce indigo for the interest of the Britisher, and many other examples can be given in which the colonial master, using the appropriate technology, has exploited our resources for their benefit. Our next heading is student conservation of resources. As we have made the one point clear in our mind that over the years exploitation of resources has taken place indiscriminately, and now the time has come to stop it. Now the time has come to conserve our vital resources for the future development and appropriate sustainable development of the country. We are aware that resources are vital for any developmental activity, but as we said, irrational consumption and overutilization of resources may lead to the socio-economic and environmental related problem, as we discussed earlier, like global warming, ozone layer depletion, land degradation. Therefore, we can say, student, that conservation of resources at various level is very important. If you remember, in the very first chapter of the economics, that was development, we discussed one of the point addressed by Gandhi ji. Our leader Gandhi ji said once that there is enough for everybody's need and not for anybody's greed. Gandhi ji wanted to say that in this world, in our physical environment, enough resources are available to fulfill our requirement, but to fulfill our greed for the sake of making more and more profit in the market economy, we do not have sufficient. Gandhiji placed the greedy and selfish individual and exploitative nature of modern technology as the root cause for resource depletion at the global level. That was Gandhiji's views, and this was the reason that Gandhiji was very much against the mass production. What happened? What is called mass production, student? When anything is produced at the large scale just to make higher and higher profit and create the requirement of consumption in the market, it is called mass production. Gandhiji was against the mass production because it leads to irrational exploitation of resources. Opposite to this, Gandhiji believed that it should be replaced by production by the masses, in which large number of people can be provided job opportunity. That's what Gandhiji believed in early period. Later, the similar views were advocated. The Gandhiji's views were advocated first time in 1968 in more systematic manner at the international level. The Club of Rome advocated this. Later in 74, Gandhian philosophy was once again presented by Schumacher in his book Small is Beautiful. It was accepted that now time has come that we should have an approach of sustainable development, and advocated also that the means of resource conservation, which was subsequently published in a book entitled Our Common Future. So this all was addressed. What Gandhiji said earlier now was considered that it is the requirement of the world at the global level to think of making a judicious use of resources, making sure that whatever resources we utilize has to be rational. It should not be meant for making only the profit, because if we will continue to do this, the nature will have the negative effect. Ecological balance of this world will be disturbed. Understood that various dimensions of resources, like resources planning, like uh, availability of resources, development of resources, and then conservation of resources. We could understand the importance of resources. In the coming portion of the chapter, we will discuss especially about the land resources. We have made our general discussion about the importance of resources complete in this section. Next section we will give our time, next section we will give our thought related to the land resources.